All right, guys, I am flipping into realtor mode. How have you been doing? I haven't seen you guys in a while. I've been working, busy, buyers all over the place. Okay, buyers is good, busy is good, busy is our friend. Okay, guys, all my realtors. I'm trying to say fellow realtors. Okay, all my fellow realtors out here. I'm switching into agent mode, realtor mode. So, I had a situation that kind of made my buyer feel a kind of way about a sale that we had gotten into. We looked at a property, found her a property, got into contract. We got into the inspection mode, and we had requested a day for an inspection, and the buyer's agent is like, "Oh, I can't do that day." I'm like, "You can't do that day? All you gotta do is give me access." What do you mean you can't do that day? And she's like, "Yeah, I can't do that day." I'm like, so I asked her, I said, "So are you going to be attending our inspection?" She says, "Yeah, I'll be there." I said, "You'll be inside of the property or sitting outside in the car?" She said, "I'll be inside the property." Okay, realtors know protocol. It's not written anywhere, but normally, you give full access to the unit to the buyer and the buyer's inspector to go through the unit. When I typically take a listing, I tell my seller, "Listen, you're not going to be there during the inspection." Okay. And there's two reasons for it. You want the buyer to feel comfortable with, their inspection and, not having a seller looking over their shoulder. And the other reason is to protect your seller. Okay. So, you may have a seller in there who blows her own deal because now the inspector's in there and he's asking her specific questions, and he or she are answering like clockwork, and the answers may kill her deal. So it's like, sometimes you give too much information. Something should be handled by your realtor. Okay, that's what we get paid for. Let us do our job. But as the realtor's agent hanging around, and I mean the seller's agent hanging around in a buyer's inspection, that's typically, that's never happened to me before. She says, "Yes, I'm going to be there." And then here's what she says: "My client wants me to be there, and I do this all the time. I don't know what the problem is." Okay, the last thing you said, "I do this all the time," which let me know it's really not the client of yours, it's you. It's a protocol that you do. And, you might want to rethink that when an agent questions you about that and, seems a little bit uncomfortable. Instead of you pushing back in a way, that sounds combative, what you should do is say, "You know what? If you feel more comfortable with your client, doing the inspection alone, with your inspector, I would sit outside in the car and wait until you guys were done." Okay, that's what you should have said instead of the pushback that you gave, which let me know that you are the person that does this all the time. So it's not your seller's request. It's something that you do, which is along your protocol, which you should rethink, because I'll tell you why. Even though that deal didn't go through, because for that particular property, she would have had to bring too much down. She was very uncomfortable with the fact that you were going to be at her inspection. She's not a first-time buyer. She's bought before. So that was one of the reasons that she happily got out of that deal. So how does my fellow realtors feel about a buyer's agent sticking around on, I'm sorry, a seller's agent sticking around on an inspection that a buyer's agent should be at? Okay. How do you feel about that? Okay. For me, she says to me, and then she says, "Oh, I'm not going to be in earshot of what they're talking about." "Oh, no, you weren't going to be, because I was going to bring you some coffee and we were going to sit somewhere and I was going to chat your ear off." I was going to chat your ear off to the point where you weren't going to be able to hear anything. I was going to let her husband and the wife and the inspector go and have at it, and I was chatting you to death. So no, you weren't going to hear anything. That was going to backfire totally. So yes, guys, my agents out there, my realtors, how do you feel about a seller's agent hanging around in your buyer's inspection? typically made my buyer uncomfortable. But how you feel about that? Answering the chat, guys. All right. Have a good day.